Well, hello everyone. You have right here talking about whenever it comes to conversations, right? And a lot of times it seems like to where that yeah, if you're going to be filling out an application or anything like that, or if it's just going to be what you call having any sort of discussion and conversations with anybody. But a lot of times it's like yeah, that whenever you do start a conversation with anybody, and I drew this picture right here, if it was actually represented for like any source of a meeting or if it's talking about the grade book right here. And I'm sure that most of us will probably say too that, what's the type of look that you usually have whenever you're looking at something or try to oppose to something or something like that. But still, when we do speak about unknown facts and unknown situations, though, that what's really the first thing that comes to our minds when we do speak about, we don't have an answer to this question, or that, yeah, if anything, it's confidential. So a lot of times it's like, you might even think too that most discussions and arguments come by as to where that, yeah, somebody asks a simple question and then they want a simple answer, such and such. But on your hand, when we do talk about the uncertainty right here, and everybody might say that, okay, yeah, the uncertainty we're talking about is to where that yeah, that when we talk about unknown right here, somebody asks a question, but then it's like you're always want to know too that when we do talk about unknown right here, that you might even think too that yeah, something. If you were to ask the question, and let's just say that when we do come up to those moments as to where it's unknown, and you're thinking as to where, okay, yeah, that. So really, what is that really supposed to mean when we do talk about unknown? And let's just say, if you're going to be filling out an application, by the way, then in a lot of these companies would even say too that if you're going to be, filling out an application, that they don't want to see you mark an unknown on every single question. And for sure, that they're going to tell you that, we don't want you marking every question on that survey or on that application as unknown, or I do not have to answer this question or something like that. So in case of anybody's want to know too, that yeah, that each time you do think about that, and you want to know too that okay, yeah, that you have two people talking right here, but really though that how often do we necessarily think about that to where that when we do talk about uncertainty right here and talk about anything that's going to be confidential, right? And so that's why it seems that way to where that yeah, somebody's going to ask the question, but how often do they use the word unknown? I'm like, yeah, how often do they use the word I don't know then compared to anything else that maybe that they're going to say? And let's just say that something else is maybe going to say something like, yeah, that in case if anybody's want to know too, that whenever you do start talking about something for sure, that what that somebody's going to maybe say is toward the either I don't know, or by our chance as to where that they're going to go ahead and give an answer to a question of some sort. But let's just say if the conversation goes by is toward yeah, that when we do talk about any information that needs to be provided, especially on an application, and you're 102, that is to where that yeah, that any data that's provided such and such, but still that by half the time it sure seems that way that each time you think about it though, and you 102 that hey, that whenever it comes to answering a question right here of talking about for I don't know, like yeah, I do not know, and I don't know the answer to that question or so. And a lot of times it's like people might say that, well, most of the time it's over confidentiality. Most of the time it's over something confidential, right? But when we're talking about two people having a conversation right here, and you 102, as to where that hey, that why is it that maybe somebody might even say too that they don't feel comfortable with having the conversation just because that there's too much distractions, and maybe that they want to feel a little bit more comfortable talking about something, and so that's why it seems that way to where that every time you do think about that, you're always 102. That besides, I don't know, that, yeah, but still. So how often are we going to maybe say is to where that, okay, yeah, that when we do speak about the uncertainty right here, that you're going to go ahead and if this right here was supposed to be like a logo design right here, and let's just say that this right here was supposed to be an example of two people talking right here, and let's just say if they're going to be having a question or that they're going to be having a discussion about something, and you'll want to know too that yeah, that you have conversations, talking about something for sure, right? But a lot of times that you begin to want to know too as to where that yeah, you remember talking about something and maybe but still, it's like if you're going to be if you're going to be going to an interview and talking to somebody about something, then a lot of times is that they say that yeah, most interviews are confidential, and if we know what confidential means, that pretty much means is to where that you're having a conversation that does not need to be passed around to somebody else, or it does not need to be shared with anybody else or something like that, and that's usually what that means right there is that whenever you're going to be talking about confidentiality, that that pretty much means is to where that the information about the person does not need to be shared with somebody else, and so that's why it seems that way to where that whenever you do think about conversations a lot of times, but really that if we were to think about that to where if you're going to be filling out an application, and let's just say that you put the if you were to put the apply for something, and if you put it in your name, if you were to mark unknown to every single question, what do you think, what source of attitude are you really given whenever we talk about filling out applications? And let's just say that if you put on there that that you don't know the answer to this question, or you don't know the best way of how to answer to provide that information, and so anybody who's going to be a good applicant, you might even say too that if you were to go ahead and if you were to write unknown or I don't know to every single question, what are the chances are that you are not going to get approved benefits? That is to where that yeah, anything that is promised about the paperwork or anything that's promised about that application status and everything, and that is why it seems that way to where that whenever you have conversations with somebody that they would ask as to where that yeah, if you're going to be getting into any sorts of conversations with anybody, for sure that despite about how private and maybe how secretive it is or whichever, but still that everybody might say that first of all it starts by as to where that yeah, it starts off as a two-person conversation before it turns out to be maybe a 5-team group or something like that, and like everybody else might say that if you're going to be getting into conversations with just somebody else, and people may want to know too that hey, that that's supposed to be that's confidential right there, and so it sure seems that way that every time you do think about that, then you want to know too that yeah, that you get into conversations with somebody, and you a lot of times you always want to know too as to where that what's the best way of how to handle that whenever it comes to the uncertainty, and whenever it does come to whenever you're trying to provide information to somebody about something, and let's just say that if it's on an application or something like that, and so everybody might say that that yeah, that if somebody were to ask, if somebody did ask you a question about something, then you want to know too that hey, that how come that there are a few questions that were on the application, by the way, that how come that you marked unknown on a few of the questions right there. Is that really smart to go ahead and just write abbreviate, for UN or something like that, NA or something like that? And to me, though, in case if anybody's want to know too, that really that if you're going to be filling out any sorts of application or doing any sorts of interviews, by a chance that you may even want to know too, as to where that if you're going to be having a conversation with anybody, that the first thing that you say is that I had no idea, I had no idea about this, or I had no idea about that. So really, what is that really supposed to teach the other person about that? When we do speak about unknown all the time, and people might say is to where the first thing that they're trying to say, which I know a lot of people would say, is toward it whenever you say I don't know to a question, what you're trying to say is that you're trying to you're trying to protect their personal information from being exposed. And most of the time that's the case, right? Every time you do, I'm like, you need permissions, and a lot of times that's usually the case, by the way. Everybody might say that, whenever we do talk about filling out any application, by the way, that, if you do not have permission, if you don't have permission to provide that information for sure, then, by all certain as to where that, everybody might say if you're not authorized to give that information to whoever that requested, but still, almost every time that I think about that, and people may want to know too, that there are some things that you do know, but you just don't, you basically say is to where some of it cannot be shared, some of it cannot be exposed to the other person because without their permission, right? Without their permission, that you cannot tell, you can't mention, you can't provide that information, and so we should all know that well, I'm sorry to ask, or we ask to have this information for a reason. So in case of anybody's want to know too, that you get into these conversations with anybody really, and they're gonna maybe say is to where that the way that you handle unknown will be is to where that you don't have permission to be able to talk about something or to mention somebody else's case and all that. So a lot of times, unknown or maybe I do not know could also mean as to whether you're trying to protect that that data, based on somebody else's information, and so that's why it seems that way to where every time you think about that, and you want to know too that why do you think that that every time you think about that, you think is toward that you're talking about two people having a conversation right there. Those two people are going to be talking about something, but that those two people are not always going to feel comfortable passing some of that information off to the other parties or something like that. So that's why it seems that way, that that every time you think about confidential, right, confidentiality, that you're talking about is to where it's not the same thing as I don't know. In case if anybody's want to know too, that if you come up to those moments as to where that information about them, information that about them that can't be released to the other person without the other person's consent, and most of the time that's usually the case. Anybody who asks for that information, by the way, they should understand as to where that if the data is recorded, I'm like, that data is there, but then of course it's like, they'll probably say as to where that just because you ask the questions, that doesn't mean that other personnel has to provide that information. So that's why it seems that way, that that you're always want to know too, that why is it that some conversations can't go by as toward it, if this other person did not give this person permission to have access to that information. So that's why it seems that way, that everybody might say that for sure, right, that it goes by that if you were looking at the progress reports or something like that, or if it was maybe the grade reports or something like that. But still, if you're going to be having a conversation with somebody else, for sure, that I'll tell everybody that I drew this picture right here to represent for like a grade book, just for conversation. But in case if anybody's want to know too, were you ever dreaming about talking with somebody about your case, about what's been going on these past couple of days or something like that? I'm like, I've had dreams about having conversations with somebody about stuff like that, and it's been a while since we talked about it, something like that. But on the other hand, that when we do speak about the unknown right here, that somebody might say is to where it's another way of saying is to where that information is either it's inaccurate or that they want to put it in a way and so far of their own words of so far saying, right? So you may have heard that too, to where that if you want to give feedback for anybody really, and like 102, that if you're going to be having conversations with anybody, but I just like 102 that if there was possibly, like everybody might say, that if you were to design a logo, this logo would tell a story about is to where that you got two people having a conversation right here, and you want to know too that if you were to put unknown on every application, right, and which I don't understand why anybody would want to do that. To be quite honest with you, I'm like, if you're going to be filling out any application for real, that you always want to know too that why do you think that you would want to mark unknown or NA on every question on an application? And I think a lot of everybody else, anybody who's applying for something would say is to where just because they don't feel like they have to answer that question, they feel uncomfortable answering that question. So anybody that might say that most of those questions are going to be either confidential or private, and they say that they are not going to answer the questions, and that is why that they're going to go ahead and put an abbreviation right here. They're going to abbreviate that to where that it's going to be something like NA or something like that, and usually you see something like that right there. You see NA right there, and in case of anybody's 102, that it's not available to know yet, but on the other hand, that in case of anybody's 102, that you would answer the question to where that I don't know if you really had no clue of about that information to begin with. But you always 102 is to where that why do you think that maybe most arguments will start up is about the fact about that it's two people talking right here, but most of those arguments are going to start up just by it's not really about the fact about for who has a smile on their face or not, but it's over the fact about the demand of information about something. And in case of anybody's 102, that whenever you do think about that, by the way, and you 102, if you were to put your name on that application, for sure that there would be some answers that would need to be provided, just to be able to complete the application process. And that is why it seems that way to where that everybody would say that, do you think they will be smart and a genius to be able to put NA or, unknown or I do not know on every single question, and they're going to say is to where that, very little information provided, and chances are you are not going to get what you were applying for. And so that's why it seems that way to where, especially if it's going to be an interview, if it's going to be an interview or any other source of review of some kind, any source of meeting, that you're going to be talking to somebody, and somebody's going to say that, what is a good reason to why that you would want to go ahead and put, I do not know as an answer on those applications. And I really think in a lot of ways too that I do know or I do not know. And yeah, that's what it says right there. And I really don't know everybody. Everybody might even want to know too that you put a dash right there. So yeah, so if you were to word it just like that right there, and people may say that yeah, if you put that on the application right there, why does it seem like I don't know if we've seen questions written like that to where that I don't know what you call it, but to where that you actually see on the application, to where you actually see the question being written in 2 or 3 different ways right here. You have right here is that go ahead and circle for which answer that marks the best response or something like that. But yeah, I do know or you do not know or something like that, and then it goes by confidential. I don't have permission to gain access to that information. So every time you do think about that, you always want to know too that why do you think that why do you think that maybe most questions would go by like I do know or I do not know or something like that. I do know or no I don't know about that, but still. So half the time it's like so pretty much it's like when we do talk about anything confidential, right? That a lot of times people may want to know too. That really, how often do we really want to go ahead and say something like, to word no problem? That's really in case if anybody's want to know too. That do you necessarily say that so that way you can kind of get the problem under control? Just to keep the situation calm. And if there's going to be any questions that I'm like, yeah, any questions that you're trying to concentrate on, and any, by any reason at all, that a lot of people would say that, yeah, you're going to have conversations with somebody for sure, right? And chances are their response is going to be, either I don't know or, confidentiality or anything like that. But still, it's like almost every time you get into conversations with anybody else, that most of the time that people may want to know too that how do you really know if you really feel comfortable talking about a situation? And somebody might say that most of the time that you feel a little bit more comfortable talking about a situation maybe whenever you feel comfortable talking about a certain topic, or everybody might say that, yeah, whenever you're a little bit more supportive over the situation, and a lot of times that's usually the case, right? You feel more comfortable talking about a problem or a situation knowing that you feel a little bit more support, for the situation. And that's another reason why that everybody might say that, between demanding an answer and they may be actually supporting the question. And don't you think that maybe anybody might say too that supporting the question, supporting a concern or a question should be the main topic, rather than just thinking about it as to where if you're going to be demanding answers all the time. And everybody might say that how often are you going to hear that to where that do you really support how much support you show to your question, then rather than demanding answers all the time. So everybody might say that a number of times based on your experience, right? You would fill out these applications a lot of times, and it's like, yeah, what exactly does that usually mean when we do talk about no problem, or that maybe whenever it comes to confidentiality of some kind? But you're thinking as to where, okay, yeah, whenever you do answer, I don't know, or you do, or if you don't know, an answer to something. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, that, yeah, you got 2 people talking right here. But of course, people might even say too that, you got two people talking right here, but on the other hand, that, You always want to know too. You get in these conversations a lot of times, and people say, yeah, you talk about your name, right? And then you talk about no problem right here, but how often do we think about that as to where that, what does it usually mean? If you were to fill out an application, by the way, then what does that usually mean whenever you put something in your name, then compared to somebody else put it in their name? Like, and well, that what that usually means is that you're filling out an application. You're filling out a form. You're filling out any source of form that requires you to provide information about something, and they say is to where, yeah. So it's like, so in case if anybody's want to know too, that what does that usually mean whenever somebody's whispering into your ear and thinking as to where that they want to go ahead and whisper into your ear for any reason at all. They want to go ahead and they feel comfortable whispering into your ear about something that's all going to be on their mind. What exactly does that necessarily mean? And in case if anybody's want to know too, that they don't want to talk out loud in front of everybody else about any problems that they don't even wish to share right away. And like everybody might say that, yeah. Do you think that maybe that question could have been phrased to something else before it was shared? And that they say that, yeah, they don't feel comfortable talking in front of everybody else about the situation, so that's why they say that, yeah, you go ahead and just talk to one person about it before you go ahead and share it with a few of the other members of the group. But still, we talk about her name and no problem right here, but I thought I'd go ahead and talk about that just because you got two people talking right here, and everybody says to where that when we do talk about unknown right here, and 102 that what exactly does everybody really mean when they do say something like that? And like, and yeah, you ask the questions and all that, and it's like you don't always get answers for every question other than that you put on there for unknown right there. But still, that when we do talk about trying to solve problems, and people may say that, yeah, for sure, right? If you're trying to provide further assistance, if you are trying to provide further support to a situation, you're 102 that the more information that's provided, right, then the more helpful it will be, right? That the more information that was provided. But let's just say that the question should go by as to where that should you actually put the question into like a I don't know if you want to kind of call it like a scenario to where that support your question right here. Show support. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, that it could be one or two questions or something like that, but still, everybody might want to know too that why is it that in case if anybody's going to be asking a question, why is it? What does that mean to support a question? And everybody might say that I know exactly what it means to support a question. That means is to where that you've been there. You've been in that same situation, but maybe not everybody really knows what that means. They demand answers to a question or so, but how often are you going to use that word or phrase as to where it support a question? You support support the question right there, and yeah, could it be questions or could it be support the questions? So every time you think about that, you're 102 that what does that even mean? And I'm like, well, I know exactly what it means. That means is to where that you go ahead and show support for the situation before you can come up with the solution for the answers, right? Everybody might say that, yeah, if there's going to be questions, there's going to be answers, right? But how often do we think about that to where that what comes before the answers? And to me, though, that like everybody might say that, is it feedback or is it comments that come before answers? What comes before the answers? And everybody might say that, well, support. Support comes before the answers. You need support in order to be able to get answers. Then maybe why can't everybody might think about that is to where to go ahead and show support before you give answers, and maybe everybody else would maybe say that more likely you're going to get more information that comes down. Like, yeah, you're going to get more information at some point, but it seems like that every time you do think about that, then you want to know too that you talk to somebody about something, and they're going to say that hey, that if they keep demanding answers from you all the time, and what is that really supposed to mean? But still, so it's like, yeah. So every time you do think about that, you're 102. That yeah, if there's going to be a lot going on for sure, your answer is going to be, I don't know, or I think I do know, or something like that. But every time you do think about that, you're 102. What do you think people are trying to say whenever they do think about the uncertainty or the unknown right here? It's all in A right here. What do you think is going through somebody's mind whenever they read that right there? And people might say that to where that pretty much means is to where that it makes them real nervous talking about it, or like everybody else would say that they don't feel comfortable talking about it until you actually show a little bit more support over the situation. And I just really think in a lot of ways too that if you could show a little bit more support over the question, then chances are that you would get a few more answers in compared to whenever you originally started, right? And in case if anybody's 102, that yeah, support your questions. What does that mean? Well, I'm sure a lot of doctors and therapists would maybe say that, I know exactly what that means. That means that you are speaking up about your concern, you're speaking up about your questions, and you're speaking up about any thoughts and opinions that come to your mind. But then also that, what you're basically are doing is to where you're trying to provide enough information to give to somebody else to where that they can understand a little bit more clearly about what the situation is. And so that's why it seems that way to where that, yeah, every time you do have conversations with somebody that you begin to wonder as to where that yeah, what does confidentiality mean and what does permissions mean right here. But you don't want to put that on every application, in case if anybody's wondering. If you're going to be filling out an application for sure, that they'll ask you to where to please provide enough information as you can, but still that I'm like, what anybody might even say too that yeah, whenever you do show you support a question, whenever you do support a number of questions, do you think that you're pretty much telling everybody that yeah, I'll be able to? I'm like, yeah, I understand, no problem with that, and so doesn't anybody maybe even agree to where that just to go a little bit more easier on the person though, you show support to a question to where that you've actually been there, and and it's not so hard, it's not so difficult as it used to be. And so that's why it seems that way to where every time you do think about that and you're 102, that you get in these conversations a lot of times that one way to show support is just is to where that you go ahead and show is to where yeah, you show support to a question. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve the problem, right? You're trying to solve the problem, but at the same time that you're just getting information together, right? In case of anybody's 102, that one way that you can do that, of course, is just is toward yeah. You remember having a meeting talking about something, but you start out that the comment is to where hey, I really don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I have no clue of what this means right here. So what sorts of conclusion is that really supposed to provide? And in case if anybody's 102, that it don't really show any source of conclusion for sure, but still, on the other hand, it makes you real nervous knowing about the fact that that whenever you get into conversations like that, then you're 102. That what could possibly happen if you do, confidential, and everybody else would say is that that's the first thing that you're thinking about is that whenever something's confidential, then that's whenever they're going to say that I don't know or I really don't even know the answer to that question. But still, it's all about confidentiality, right? Yeah, that there's only so much information that you can provide during a time, but still. But let's just say that if you were to say something like to where that you support the questions right here, and like say you say no problem, just so that way you could be able to handle the situation, right? But anyway, but I thought I'd go ahead and talk about that just because everybody might say that a number of times that you have these conversations a lot of times, and the first thing that you're going to be saying is toward I don't know. Well, hey, that is a really good question because I have no clue. I don't really know, or I really don't know. And I don't think really anybody wants to hear that for an answer, to be quite honest with you. I think everybody else would say is to where that don't you think that they would much rather hear no problem? I show support to the situation. They don't want to hear I don't know. And for sure, if you go ahead and say something like no problem, support the questions. If you say that on the application, for sure, what is the probability of somebody recognizing that entry than compared to saying I don't know all the time? So that's my opinion about that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Talk about for the confidentiality and permissions right here. But I thought I'll go ahead and put that in right there just because that you have conversations about something and you always begin to want to know too. That you have somebody talking about something, and a lot of times it's like, you always want to know too. That why do they use the word I don't know more often than compared to when they show support to a question? And they say it makes them feel really uncomfortable when everybody is going to be asking a question and yelling at them about a situation than compared to showing more support to a question. And I just really think in a lot of ways. What are ways that you can support a question? Well, just by asking by concern, right? But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good day.